joining us on another episode of Tea and Trowels, FPAN's web series featuring conversations with archaeologists. Today, I'm joined with Gwynn Henderson. Would you like to introduce yourself and your mug?
Oh, yes, I'd love to. Hi, my name's Gwynn Henderson. I'm the Education Director of the Kentucky Archaeological Survey. You may wonder why I'm linked here with FPAN. My very dear friend, Sarah Miller, who works with Emma on this project, or maybe is the person who is supporting Emma in this project there at Flagler College. I saw this, and anything I can do to help FPAN and Sarah and her folks, I'm all about it. So I'm thrilled. This is such a creative idea. And introducing my tea cup. Look at this. Is that not cool? Stunning.
Perfect.
This is really its maiden voyage. When I discovered it, it was a gift from a friend, another archaeologist, Cecilia Magnosa, who Sarah knows. Cecilia sent it to me, and now I'm using it, remembering her, just like I'm remembering Sarah with my Sarah earrings on. It's all about objects and our connection to our past and who we are.
Exactly, it's perfect. That was the whole point of having us show off our mug collection, is because there's so many great stories.
Exactly.
Has a Sarah Miller connection as well, because I actually got a 4-pack of these and I gave them to each of our regional people for a, technically I wanted to do this for Christmas. I was late, so it was a COVID gift, but it's an attempt to be the Blue Willow.
Oh my God, the Blue Willow!
But there's
that's awesome.
Ships and pterodactyls and giant frogs and Sasquatch.
Oh my God, oh look, and Sasquatch.
Yep, so it's calamity ware. It's basically the Blue Willow pattern filled with a bunch of just some calamity, which hopefully this is not the timeline of COVID, that we're not going to expect robot invasions anytime soon. So starting off, basic question, how did you get into archaeology?
When I was in 7th grade, I came down with mononucleosis and I had to stay home, and my mom bought me this book. Reader's Digest Treasury for Young Readers. In it was an article about Pompeii, the city that died to live. I still have the book. There was a sidebar. Beware the sidebars. And in that sidebar, it talked about how it is that they could write about the story about what happened at Pompeii because of the archaeological work that had been done at Pompeii. And I turned to my mother and I said, I'm going to be an archaeologist. Well, you know, people are going to be all kinds of things in their youth, although in 7th grade, you're not so much in your youth anymore. I had always been interested in old things anyway. When I was a 4th grader, we had to do a scrapbook about animals, and everybody else did living animals, and I did dinosaurs. So I've always been interested in history and things like that. A lot of archaeologists, some archaeologists will come to archaeology because they've collected artifacts in the farm fields and that kind of thing, but not me. I wanted to find the missing link. I wanted to find the lost cities of the lost people. They weren't lost, of course. They were Mayan people live in Mexico, in the Yucatan today. It just never left. And you know, I don't know about you, but oftentimes people will have these dreams about what they want to be when they grow up. And then for multitude of reasons, they don't do it. I know that women my age were told, in fact, I myself was told that I couldn't be an archaeologist. This was from my high school guidance counselor, because an archaeologist couldn't move with my husband as he moved for his job. Of course, I didn't even have a boyfriend then, so I mean, I appreciated her optimism, but still. And I can't tell you how many women I've talked to who said I always wanted to be an archaeologist, but they told me I couldn't be because I was a woman. But my mother and father never dissuaded me. They wondered if I was going to make any money.
Yeah, the money part's a little hard, but yeah. Like it's definitely a running theme that I always get shoved like, you're an archaeologist? It's like, yes, I am.
And what I think is funny, Emma, is that when you go to the conferences, there are so many more women now. And I will say on a couple of the field schools that David Pollock and I led, we had in some seasons we had more women than men. And still,
my first Florida field school was all women other than the PI.
Get out, really?
All the directors, all the supervisors, all the field students, a solid female crew, which was awesome and fun and my favorite field experience ever. But we'll jump along just to learn a little bit more about you. What is your current research?
My current research, I would say, is two-pronged, Emma, because a lot of archaeologists these days, have their research interest in an academic sort of context and then a research interest in their more applied context. And I'm very lucky to have found two that are particularly stimulating and fun and very sustaining. The first one is researching indigenous tribal societies of the Ohio Valley. It was the focus of my dissertation research, but I've been interested in Fort Ancient farming peoples of the Middle Ohio Valley for a long time. And lately, this has expanded. I conduct this research with David Pollock. Lately, our research has expanded. We were invited by the Shawnee tribes to work with them on a project that uses pottery as a vehicle for discovering their ancient technologies. And it's a way for them to reconnect with their history. And it's been a real honor to work with them and have the conversations that we have had, which has helped us. The Native peoples have provided us alternative explanation models for some of the things that we've seen in the field. The second research that I do is with Linda Levstick, and it's exploring how archaeology can be used as a vehicle to help children learn about the past and explore their connections to the past. And that has been an absolutely eye-opening experience. Linda is internationally known as a researcher of history education with, focused on kids. And together we have done a number of projects that I now consider the field not only an archaeological site, Emma, but also a classroom.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome.
It's amazing. It's truly amazing.
I'm interested in both of those topics very much so, and the work with the Shawnee sounds amazing.
It is amazing, and I've just got to share this one experience, which just is the story of the whole thing. After our first meeting, two of the members of the ceramic group, Ben Barnes, who is now the chief of the Shawnee Tribe of Oklahoma, and Richard Zane Smith, who is Wyandotte, but he is the ceramic expert, amazing artist. Oh my God. They came to the University of Kentucky's Museum of Anthropology to see some of the curated Fort Ancient materials there, because a lot of the Fort Ancient stuff is at that museum. And Richard wanted to see, the real live objects, because he is learning to replicate these and then teaching others how to make Fort Ancient pots. And when Ben Barnes held that fragment of a Fort Ancient jar and said, "Oh my gosh, this could be I get broken up even when I think of it, because his face, the connection, the reality." And he said, this might be the first time that this fragment of pot has been held by the descendants of the people who made it since it was made and broken. and you thought about the profoundness of that and the importance of objects and how they tell us so much and can mean so much to people. I mean, it means a lot to me. It was a great, don't get me wrong, it was a beautiful shirt. But the connections that he had, you know, as an Indigenous person, realizing it came from his Shawnee descendants from their, you know, ancient homeland. It was a profound experience for me to see his response. I'll never forget it. Oh my God, it was just amazing.
It is. I'm speechless. It does. It kind of just reminds you of like why we need to start really focusing on how we do our archaeology and what our purpose is. But we'll
absolutely, Emma. It's true. It causes you to really rethink it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Completely taking a left-hand swing here, but we'll continue on. And I know that you brought your bonus points. What is your favorite field tool?
Well, as an archaeologist, and it is tea and trowels, of course, I've brought my trowel. I mean, you can't not bring your trowel. And this little one is not my original. My original broke in 1977 on a water screen on the Ohio River on JF 110. Everyone knows where it happened, if it happened. Of course, it's asymmetrical because I'm right-handed, so this side has been sharpened, you know, more than the other. However, my other fun and favorite one, and this too is a curated object. Closer to, wait, my Mickey Mouse spoon. My Mickey Mouse spoon, I think, was something that I got, I don't know, well, decades ago. I don't know if, I didn't buy it, and no one gave it to me. I think it was like in a cereal box or something, I don't know. And a promotion, right? This spoon is a great spoon. It's very small, as you can see. So let's, for scale. It can get in those little places, you know, that tiny little bit, and it's a very heavy spoon, it's a very solid spoon. So I have found over the years, particularly when you become a supervisor, you end up lending tools out, and after a while, they just never come back. In my youth, I had a toolbox to be, you know, to die for. Now, there are certain ones that I mean, it's just like, before you would leave the site that day, where's Mickey? And somebody would go, oh, that's right, I've got Mickey. Don't you be walking right, get me Mickey back. I also had Minnie and she's gone. So you see what happens. So those are my favorite tools in my toolbox.
Yeah. There's an archaeologist out there now who has Minnie and is gonna watch us and be like, oh, I need to.
Yes, exactly. If I get it in the mail, Emma, I'll tell you.
Yeah, yes, please do. So kind of keeping on trend about the field, what is your best, worst field story?
I really think that's a great question. I don't know how long it took you guys to come up with that, but that's a classic. Because most people say, you know, oh, tell us about blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, but this is, you know, archaeologists here. All right. Again, this was on that 1977 Southwest Jefferson floodwall project. It was my second big mitigation project. My supervisor, this was on JF 14. No, it wasn't. I'm sorry, JF 18. Jefferson County 15, JF 18. And we were up on a river bluff top or river ridge, and my supervisor, Dick Bovair, who is still a very dear friend, I was excavating a small feature filled with flakes. It was some kind of little napping station or something. I mean, it was almost no dirt. It was just flakes. And he said, okay, Gwynn, this looks great. I had done the plan so you could see exactly so what to do now, which side to profile and so forth, which side to excavate. He said, okay, take out the south half and then we'll be all set up, you know, to take a picture of the profile and then we'll come back and take out the rest the next day. I said, okay. And I proceeded to take out the other half, the wrong half. So he comes up to me and goes, Gwynn, what are you doing? I said, well, you said to take out the south half. He's like, Gwynn, you took out the north half. He said, I can't take a picture in it all shadow like this. The reason why I asked you to take the picture, dig out the side that you did, was that then I'd get the sun on it or what, you know what I mean? It was like,
Yeah.
He was like, I can't believe you did that. I'm like, I can't believe I did that either. Clearly, I hadn't been on the site long enough to realize which was north or south or something. I don't know. Anyway, he said, not to worry, Gwynn, it's okay. He joked with me about it, but he didn't give me a hard time. It didn't diminish his feeling that I was a crew member that he could give directions to, and I could go off and do it myself without much supervision. It's just that, if I'm remembering correctly, he after, for a while there, he reminded me, okay, like in the ground, this side, Gwynn, take out that side.
Yeah.
Oh, I was mortified, Emma. I was just mortified. It was a great little feature.
I have
That was my best part.
experience. My first field school in Florida, all my training had been in the Southwest. So when we came across post holes, all my Southwestern experience, the wooden posts are still there. So I had found like my first Florida swamp post hole. And they're like, yeah, all right, excavate the feature, it's post. I was like, okay, but that's dirt. Normally realizing like in the past we excavate the soil around the post down, not excavate the feature. And they had to explain that to me. I was like, this is my first feature that doesn't actively have wood still in it. It's not a solid object. And they're like, this makes so much sense. But I felt like the biggest idiot in the world to have like my PI explain this to me and then me train the student how to do that. I'm like, yeah, Southwest.
But you know, archaeology requires so much experience.
Yeah.
You know, and you draw on that experience as you go from site to site. That was one of the things that I always tried to say to our field school students. I said, you know, archaeology is a sensual science. You're drawing on all your senses, and it's also an experiential learning context. Your toolkit gets bigger and bigger as you've had more experiences with diverse site types, diverse feature types. In fact, in our work at Fox Farm, a Fort Ancient village that we spent our field schools with on, I remember turning to David at one point and saying, you know, we could never have done the work at this site in our youth. We've had to bring to bear all the sites that we've worked on in our respective careers in order to try to explain these kinds of features that we had never seen before.
Yeah.
You know, it's well, and Emma, explaining that experience, only an archaeologist could love. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So our last formal question of our interview is our big one. And this is, how do you think that archaeology can help save the world?
I've been thinking about that. Transparency people here, she sent me the picture, the questions. Because I do believe that it can change the world. I mean, witness the experience that I had with the Shawnee people. And that archaeological context is providing me personal experience with Indigenous people and hearing about the things that are of concern to them, their challenges, their history, their concerns, their frustrations, their history. I personally think that archaeology and anthropology can change the world because the name of the game at this point is about appreciating the diverse voices across the world at this time. understanding the breadth of human experience, and there are many ways to be human, and there are many appropriate ways to be human, and it's not just one way, and we can't afford to be blinders. Okay. So in that case, a cultural anthropology course will expose us to diverse cultures. Okay, languages, religions, economics and politics, technologies, and so forth. But archaeology adds depth, time depth, and breadth to the cultural anthropology experience, because archaeology gives us an opportunity to see many more different kinds of ways to be human, and interpreting the patterns of those long ago cultures, particularly the ones that don't leave any written records. Over the years, I have learned, and frankly, just recently am taking action on this realization now. I am trying to excise the word prehistory from my vocabulary. Because in truth, prehistory means before history. And history is events in the past. So then prehistory would be before humans. Native people's history is not prehistory because they are humans. Prehistory is a racist and really denigrating term to indigenous peoples. Okay, so their history is oral history, and their history is written in the ground. That's history. That's past events. That's human events. There is no such thing as pre-human history because it's all history. So archaeology changing the world, it gives us an understanding of that deep and broad human experience, and gives us a sense of how we're linked to that chain of humanity. And I just don't know if plain old history written in books can give us that. It's, you know, it seems too short. I'm not trying to say that the historic archaeologists are lame in any way. I'm not trying to say that archaeologists who study, you know, indigenous history and so forth are the only way to go. It takes a village. But still, I just think that the diversity, it's all about, you know, it's perspective, understanding that you're not the only way to live. And that's how I think that archaeology can change the world.
Couldn't have said it better. Especially the colonialist language that has existed and persisted for so long with archaeology, that prehistory is definitely something I've also been trying to ex-nay and find proper replacements. Pre-contact is what we've been trying to change all of our like programming to, and to discuss that, because it does have this really negative connotation that is not correct.
Well, and the words, somebody will say to you, oh, it's just a word. Well, here's an awakening that I had several years ago. Colleagues of mine at the survey, Jay Stotman and Lori Stahlgren, were working on one of our heritage spotlights, taking a technical report and turning it into information to share with the general public. And we use the term slave. And they're historic archaeologists, right? And we shared our draft with actually my colleague Linda Ledstick, who additional work that she does focuses on children's literature and African American issues and so forth like that. And she said, slave? I don't think you guys mean slave. I think you guys mean enslaved person. Well, Lori went, oh my Lord, of course. And of course, I didn't know, I hadn't heard. And when Linda explained it to me, and Jay and Lori explained it to me, I can't use that term. People are enslaved. They are not slaves. They are enslaved.
Yeah, words have such larger meanings than just their definition. and making sure that we are actively choosing the correct ones is so critical when presenting our information to the public, because we're considered at some point the experts. And even though archaeology can be interpreted and changed literally with the smallest finding, but making sure our language is very much rooted in truth. I think that might not even be the right word, the term I'm looking for, but we need to make sure that we're presenting this in the most factual ways as possible.
Exactly. I think you're right. I think people look to us, and we have to model, you know, and that means we learn as we go. I mean, I didn't know, and I mean, I'm old enough to have been an archaeologist for quite some years before the NAGPRA legislation was enacted. And I think back now about it and go, why did it take an act of the federal government to make archaeologists talk with Native peoples? I mean, it's just embarrassing.
Yeah.
You think about it. It's like, why? Descendant communities are involved in the heritage of their ancestors. So if you're going to talk with descendant communities in an African American, with links to an African American site, okay, these are the descendant communities. These are the constituents that have interest in. Why wouldn't you have done that already with Indigenous people?
Yeah. No.
Thankfully it happened. It was late. It happened.
Yep.
And it opened up channels of communication that have enriched, I think, the archaeologists, frankly,
yeah.
the Native peoples.
And we're getting there. Still have a lot more to do to advance, but we're getting there.
Right.
Last question is our bonus question. And
Ooh, bonus question. Okay.
And that is, what is keeping you sane during these times?
Well, if I would just turn the television off, sanity would be established right off. But of course, you can't do that. It's like watching a train wreck. You can't move your eyes away. You've got to watch it. You know. I would say that things like this. I mean, this is the silver lining of the pandemic, Emma. We wouldn't be doing something like this if it weren't for the fact that we were searching for opportunities like this. Mm-hmm. So I have reached out to friends who don't live nearby, and we've been doing Zoom meetings with cousins and friends in many contexts and friends. Being more mindful of my yoga and walking and meditation. I've been lucky in that the routines that I have established haven't been nearly as upended as many people's. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of work from home, and I've been working. So I've been, working on educational materials. I've been doing my children's book writing, editing papers, reviewing papers, that kind of thing. So I've kept busy, but there's that, during the pandemic, there are these days of despondency. There are these days of terror. And making sure that I've reached out to people and talked to people. David's in the field. He's been in the field every week for the past, I don't know, he said 8 or 9 weeks, which is crazy. Didn't seem like that, or it did seem like that. Time at this point is how do we measure it? I mean, I don't know. We must have been talking because my second cup is almost done, right? I mean, that's these indirect ways. So, making sure that I've when he's not here on the weekends, sometime during the week, to be sure that I've got some kind of conversation with somebody, or reading. Oh my gosh, reading, multiple things. I guess there's not a single thing. There are multiple things that I'm doing to try to stay sane.
So I'd like to thank you for joining us on this episode of Tea and Trowels, and
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, Emma.